This time, I'd like to call to order the September 1st meeting of the Sayreville Board of Education. Can everybody please stand and join me in the pledge? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Mr. Board Secretary, has this meeting been advertised in accordance with the Open Public Meeting Act?
Yes, it has, Mr. McEnroe.
Take a roll call, please.
Mr. Balka?
Here.
Mrs. Bacco?
Here.
Mrs. Bloom?
Here.
Mr. Brzezinski?
Here.
Mr. Syak? Here. Mrs. DePinto?
Here.
Mrs. Trapp? Mr. Walsh?
Here.
And Mr. McEnroe.
I am present. Need a motion?
Mr. President, I move for executive session.
I need a second.
Second.
Read resolution, please.
Whereas Section 80 of the Open Public Meeting Act, Chapter 231, PL 1975, permits the exclusion of the public from a meeting in certain circumstances, and whereas this public body is of the opinion that such circumstances presently exist, now therefore be it resolved by the Board of Education of the Borough of Sayreville, County of Middlesex, State of New Jersey as follows: the public shall be excluded from discussion of and the action upon the hereinafter specified subject matters. General nature of the subject matter to be discussed is as follows: personnel, including but not limited to agenda items, and also under that, superintendent evaluation / merit goals, attorney-client privilege, various legal issues associated with the Sayreville War Memorial High School football program, and student discipline.
Just add FCA negotiations in case we have time. If not, we'll move that to the next one.
Negotiations. SCA?
Yes, sir.
2016, 2019, I guess it is.
Can you take a vote, please?
It's anticipated at this time the above stage subject matter shall be made public at such time as the need for non-disclosure no longer exists. This resolution shall take effect immediately. Mr. Balka?
Yes.
Mrs. Bacco?
Yes.
Mrs. Bloom?
Yes.
Mr. Brzezinski?
Yes.
Mr. Syak?
Yes.
Mrs. DePinto?
Yes.
Mr. Walsh? And
Yes.
Mr. McEnroe.
Yes, the Board of Retired Executive, please. Mr. Board Secretary, has this meeting been advertised in accordance with the Open Public Meeting Act?
Yes, it has, Mr. McEnroe.
Roll call.
Mr. Balka? Here. Mrs. Bacco?
Here.
Mrs. Bloom?
Here.
Mr. Brzezinski? Here. Mr. Syak?
Here.
Mrs. DePinto? Mrs. Trapp? Mr. Walsh? Here. Mr. McEnroe.
Can you synopsize executive session, please?
This evening in executive session, under attorney-client privilege, various legal issues associated with the Sayreville War Memorial High School football program and student discipline. Under negotiations, SCA contract 7116 through 6/30/19.
Thank you. Dr. Lowry, we have presentations this evening.
Thank you, Mr. McEnroe. We have several presentations. I'm going to review with the board our proposed district goals for the 2015-16 school year. I'm also going to show you a draft of the 2016-17 school district calendar, and we've invited Mr. Brown to give us an update on the progress of the scoreboard that was dedicated to us by the Matthew Wellner Foundation. So for our 2015-16 district goals, they look similar to our 2014-15 goals. They are our Vision 2030 goals. Our first goal is, of course, based upon student achievement. We want to promote academic excellence and the success of all of our students, as evidenced by several different objectives. We talked about this at our last meeting. I thought about different forms of evidence to demonstrate the success of our students, and basically the number one measurement that we have right now to demonstrate the success of our students as compared to other students, not only in Middlesex County but in the state of New Jersey, is using the current standardized assessments that our students will take in the spring, and that would be the PARCC assessment. So goal number one is for our students in grades 3 through 8 for us to increase the percentage of students that are proficient in language arts compared to the 2014-15 students. We have not received those results. We're hoping to get those results sometime by December. But once again, once we receive those results from the 2014-15 park, we will use that as our base to go ahead and see if we can improve the percentage of kids that demonstrate proficiency on that assessment. Likewise, for math, we're going to do the same thing for students in grades 3 through 8. We're going to compare the percentage of students that are proficient on the 2014-15 assessment as compared to the 15-16 assessment. In grades in the high school, we're going to actually use 3 different forms of assessment. We're going to continue to use the HESPA results, comparing, again, 14-15 to our 15-16 results. But I would also like to continue with using SAT scores, comparing the average score for our students in language arts and math for 2015-16 as compared to how we performed in 2014-15. And we should be getting those results soon from the 2014-15 school year. And then finally, we want to look at our students in our advanced placement courses. And we want to see if there is an increase in the composite scores of our students that take those advanced placement tests. So we're looking for 2015-16 to be there to be a composite increase in the performance of our students as compared to 2014-15. And again, to promote the future academic success of all of our students, I went ahead and selected different objectives that are in our current curriculum and instruction strategic action plan. So to begin with, to develop an effective block or modified block schedule for the middle school and high school. To develop a new grades K through 8 gifted and academically talented program. To develop a science program continuum similar to our math continuum that's designed to increase the number of students that successfully complete biology by 9th grade so that we can have more students successfully completing physics by the 11th grade, which will give more of our students an opportunity to take more advanced science courses their senior year. And finally, the last 2 goals for demonstrating future academic success is effectively implementing the response to intervention methodology to assist our at-risk general education students as well as our special education students. We want to make sure that we're doing everything and anything to promote the success of all of our students. We have some fiscal goals as well. Some of those are similar to the goals that we've had in previous years, in the previous year. First of all, we're going to focus again on revenue, generating as much revenue as we possibly can. As we all know, trying to make a budget work with all the needs that we have within the district just on a 2% tax levy increase is virtually impossible. So how do we go ahead and provide our students with the resources and the services that they need and deserve? Well, we have to generate revenue as a school district. So we're looking to increase the revenue from a couple of different miscellaneous sources, such as the Special Education Medicaid Initiative. If we go ahead and we log services, we are able to go ahead and get reimbursement for some of our special education services, providing that we can get consent from our parents to do so. So we're looking to increase revenue there. We're looking to increase facility usage revenue. We recognize that we have a great relationship with the Borough Recreation Department, and we're going to continue to provide our resources to the programs within the Borough Recreation Department, as well as you can see on this agenda, to other organizations that need our facilities within the community and can't afford it, like the Girl Scouts and the Boy Scouts and the Cub Scouts and so forth. However, there are nonprofit organizations, there are for-profit organizations that are looking to lease facilities, and we want to have the facilities that they're looking for so that we can generate revenue, and of course they can benefit from our facilities. And then finally, well, not finally, 2 more. We've worked real hard the past year in creating different types of programs for our students. Programs in which we can ask parents from Sayreville or outside of Sayreville for tuition. As you know, we launched Camp Excel this year, and we were able to generate about $10,000 in revenue. You might also know that we expanded our preschool program, and we look to generate close to $100,000 based upon that program. So we're trying to develop tuition-based programs so that we can generate, again, well-needed revenue. And then finally, we're looking at advertising. We've talked about it here before. There is an opportunity out there. There aren't many districts doing it, but we do have a fleet of about 24, Mr. DeAndrea, buses. If we could somehow secure advertising on those buses, again, following the very strict guidelines that the Division of Motor Vehicles give us, as well as the strict guidelines that the Department of Education give us, that would be wonderful if we could generate $30,000 to $50,000 in revenue through that form of advertising. We're also looking to advertise on our websites as well as on our print resources and our fields. If we can generate revenue through selling signs to different vendors within the community, that would be a wonderful source of revenue that would go, again, toward our students and the services and the resources that they need. Within that line, we're also looking to see if we can go ahead and submit public and non-public non-entitlement grants. As everyone knows, we are entitled to grants from the federal government, such as the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, as well as New Child Left Behind Act. We are entitled to those grants, and we get those grants, but those grants are very restricted. Another goal that we have is to find nonprofit and profit organizations that are willing to provide us with grants. Grants that will allow us to purchase the resources and the supplies, or maybe even the services that we would normally fund through our general fund. Again, the acquisition of grants will greatly enhance the ability of us to put those resources in our teachers' hands without taking from the general fund. So that's our financial goal. And then finally, I received some feedback, particularly in my evaluation, with regard to communication. So one goal is to communicate, enhance communication with both staff as well as the community. And there are some objectives here for doing that: create and distribute a district newsletter. It will be an electronic newsletter, again, so that we're not printing and publishing and sending out. Meeting with parents at PTO meetings at least once, maybe twice a year. Meeting with faculty at faculty meetings at least once, maybe twice a year. And then an idea I got from someone, creating a live web chat or some kind of forum. Mr. Sayak and I talked about doing something like that, so that is also something that I'm going to look into doing, where we can create maybe a live forum where I can communicate with community members via the internet or so forth, with staff or parents. And finally, to enhance the school climate for students, staff, and parents, as evidenced by pre- and post-school climate survey ratings. So we will be sending out a survey to our parents, to our students, and to our staff, and we're hoping that with some of the many great things that we're doing within our schools and within our district, we can improve and enhance that climate as evidenced by the survey ratings increase. Our district goals. Board of Education members, do you have any questions at all on any of those goals?
I have a question.
Ms. Beck?
For the block scheduling, you have
Yes.
an effective block for the middle school and the high school. Since we already have some blocking in the middle school, are you looking to expand what we have at the middle school?
Correct. Right now, we do have a nice block. We have about 78 minutes. Dr. Shediak, correct me if I'm wrong, I think it's 78 minutes for language arts and math instruction for our students. But we're also looking to see if we can find a way in which our students that take social studies and science, as well as related arts classes, in which Dr. Shediak is going to be creating a committee to look at the different related arts right now in the middle school and see if we can improve or expand that list. But those kids currently, I think, have 39-minute periods. We'd like to expand that too. As a former teacher, it's very difficult to provide a well-rounded lesson within the time frame of 39 minutes. So we're hoping to create some form of modified block in which not only our kids in language arts and math get a substantial amount of time to be exposed to and practice and ultimately generalize new learning in language arts and math, but we also want to do that for those other periods as well.
Okay, and for the high school, since there isn't any, when you use the word effective, what do you mean to define effective?
to something that's going to be successful. So the plan is to spend this year, we are going to create an ad hoc committee consisting of teachers, Board of Education members if they'd like, and so forth, where we take a look at a number of different methods in which we can go ahead and develop block scheduling and implement it. So we want a system that we feel is effective for Sayreville, that we can implement as seamlessly as possible, and that will promote the most success for all of our students. So that's basically what I mean by effective.
Okay, and under the grants, since those two listed are ones that are just the normal course of your work anyway, so when you say submission and
I
approval.
don't include those. That's what I'm saying. It's
You're not
including
going to
those.
include those. Okay, I just
No.
wanted to be clear.
We're looking at other grants from private companies or public companies that will apply to, and you know, obviously it's quite competitive, but I think that that's something that we need to do as a district. I think that we need to be real aggressive in getting out there and finding these public or private companies that have grants and are willing to allow us to apply and compete for them.
Okay.
Mr. Sack?
Dr. Labby, first of all, I want to commend you on these district goals. I think they demonstrate that you've been listening to the board, because I can almost put board members' names with many of the goals that are here, as well as some of your own, such as the RTI, which you've been very passionate about. I've got two questions on the goals. One is similar to Mrs. Batko. With regard to the RTI, you talk about effective implementation. What is the measurement of effective?
Effective would be the increase in the performance of our at-risk students. Another sign would be the decrease in students referred for child study team evaluations. But obviously, for our students in special education, as well as those students that are just struggling but not in special education, the increase in their performance is going to tell us whether we're effectively implementing this or not. As you know, we spent the whole year developing RTI, response to intervention, and we created a variety of different what are called tiered interventions. Our classroom teachers provide interventions at the tier 1 level, but we created different tier 2 interventions. Those are professionals that work outside of the classroom to help the student, such as the Literacy Academy that will take place before school, ST Math, which is a very research-proven effective math software that our struggling math learners will get exposed to. Our current Title I reading specialist intervention, as well as our ASI interventionists that work with students in language arts and mathematics. We'll even provide one-on-one supplemental tutoring for kids that need it at a tier 3 level. So we have in place tiered interventions. We also purchased a software called RTIM Direct that's going to help us not only develop these tiered intervention plans, but assist us in monitoring the data and organizing the data in a very, very concrete manner that will demonstrate to our parents as well as our students if, in fact, our students are progressing or what we call responding to those tiered interventions.
Okay, thank you. My second question was, I see several of these goals are building on stuff that you've initiated in your year 1, such as the new revenue streams, the RTI, et cetera. Can we also get in here under number 2 a sub-goal for the looping, and also for the push down of Algebra 1 and encouraging more students to take Algebra 1? I see those as two major initiatives that we kicked off in year 1 that I think are going to require some additional support. I know you're working on them, but since these are district goals, I just want to make sure that everyone knows that they're not lost.
We can definitely take a look at that, particularly the algebra scenario. However, the looping scenario is a little bit different. As you know, we introduced on our strategic action plan that we would implement looping in the 2016-17 school year. So this school year now, our teachers, we have some very courageous teachers that volunteered to go ahead and with their kindergartners that they had last year, they're looping to first grade this year. I don't want to put any added pressure on those individuals. We want to utilize what they're doing in the classroom as the data we need as a committee, and we will have a committee for looping, to analyze what they're doing, the impact that it's having on learning, how they went ahead and implemented it, and I want to use that data to assist us in, first of all, finalizing our decision to loop for 16-17, and then coming up with what we feel will be an effective plan for implementing.
Okay, and I guess that's what I was looking.
I'm hesitant
yeah.
to make that a goal.
But it's part of our strategic plan.
It's part of our strategic plan, and we are doing it.
Okay.
Now, if we decide next year to implement, then that will become a goal.
Because exactly what you were just describing is what I was looking for, expecting us to
That will become a
go.
goal, but for 16, 17 when we implement it.
Okay. All right, that's all I have.
Thank you.
Okay, I now can direct your attention to the 16-17 school district calendar. As you can see, we begin school on a Thursday the 1st. Now, there are 3 days built into the calendar for snow days. If those snow days are not used, we will take them back from the last day here. So let's say we do not use any snow days, the school year will end on the 19th. If we go ahead and use those 3 school days, and we use additional days, in this box here, it outlines where we will take those days. So there's the potential for 6 snow days here that we've planned for. Hopefully, dear God, we don't need any more than that. I would love to see no snow. But we have the contingency plan here for 6 days lost due to hazardous weather.
And we're starting early again because of Labor Day?
Yeah, in order to, I mean, you can see just by starting on the 1st on a Thursday, we're ending, our teachers will end on the 23rd. We really need that week to close out the financial year, to get prepared for the summer programs that we provide. We've introduced 3 very, very strong summer programs. They need preparation. Our teachers need time. The superintendent needs time to close out the year and get moving on those summer programs. So that week buffer is huge to us.
Dr. Labby, just on the wording on the bottom, we state if additional snow days are used. Can we just change that wording to be, if schools are closed for any reason beyond, so that there's no...
I think we use the language unanticipated reasons. I'll use it again.
Yeah, that would be great, just so there's no confusion.
If the wording goes outside that box, though, I'm blaming it on you.
That's fine.
Because I'm going to have Mr. Glock or Lloyd fix that.
Use a smaller font.
I'll
No.
use a smaller font.
It's the fine print.
We're not
Absolutely.
voting on this tonight, correct?
No, we're just talking about it.
Okay. Is there a reason why we're increasing that week in November to 3 days off as opposed to the 2?
Yeah, that's a good question. So if you look at November, Election Day is actually Election Day is of course the 8th, but the 11th is Veterans Day. So you have a gap here between, this is actually NJEDA convention. You have your Election Day, which is our Professional Development Day. I would anticipate potentially, since we have these days off, there would be a high number of student absences on that one day between Election Day and the day we go on break, as well as there could possibly be staff absences. So rather than go ahead and force a day in which we have very few students attend school and possibly very few staff members attend school, I felt that it was best to make this a 3-day week. However, if that's something that you feel you want to add a day there, it might not be a very beneficial day, knowing the kids are going to go to school on Monday, have Tuesday off, come back to school on Wednesday, then have Thursday and Friday off.
Right, but I was thinking under this too, you might not have anyone, the students here on Monday, too.
Possibly
I mean,
we could have that
so did
too.
you give thought to having Monday off?
Right? Possibly. So if that's something that you want me to change, and if that's something that you guys feel is necessary to change, and we could add a day from the end of the year, we could possibly look at that as well. You might also notice too that the spring break extends into this Monday here. We did that because that's going to be an awfully long stretch for kids in March. The kids are going to go basically with 1 day off in February, no days off in March, so we figured giving them a nice 6 days off would benefit them after a very long spring.
When's Easter?
That is
The 16th.
the
16th, I think.
16th. And I
This is
believe,
the
I
Monday.
believe Passover is, I believe it begins on the
And
12th.
Monday, Easter Monday. Do you know when Passover is by any chance? Is it near Easter?
If I read it correctly, it begins the 12th.
Okay, so we have the Passover week off. No?
I'd have
He
to
has no
consult
clue.
a rabbi, I'm sorry.
Okay.
I looked it up, and there were
gotta
3
make it
different
to
dates
temple
that
first.
they listed, beginning with the 12th.
Just
So
remember it's
spring break
Sunday,
coincides with
yeah.
Passover?
Yes.
You don't go to temple.
did email this to our SCEA president and vice president over the weekend. So they have it. And hopefully, I'd love to, I know many parents utilize this to plan their vacations and so forth for the following year. We've already been receiving some inquiries from parents, so I'd love to have this approved, if not by September 15th, by the October 6th Board of Education meeting. If there are no other questions, that's it, Mr. McEnone. If I may, is there any more questions? Any more questions?
No.
All right, Mr. Brown is here. He's here to talk about the scoreboard, so I'm handing the baton over to my good friend, Mr. Brown.
As you know, I've been asked to facilitate the acquisition of a scoreboard and work with the Wellna Foundation, acquisition and installation of the scoreboard. We ordered the board, after approvals with the Wellna Foundation sometime early in July. The board was delivered about 2 weeks ago, and it came in damaged state. The shipping company that they used damaged the interior of it. When I talked to, today, I called Doug Winkleman, the VP for sales. He said the interior of the scoreboard was so bad that they couldn't even reuse any of the parts. So it was severely damaged in freight. Talked to them today. They are shipping out that unit, the brand-new unit, on Friday. It will be here Tuesday or Wednesday, and will be installed within 24 hours. That's basically the update on the board.
Mr. Brown, one of the concerns I had when you look at it right now, why was the old scoreboard taken down without the new one ready to go up, laying on the ground below it?
I think it was just the guy who's installing it, Ambidextrous Sports, that's the way he wanted it to work. He wanted to get rid of the other one because he had to add 3 feet of steel, which has already been added to the top of the board to accommodate the size of the sign, and he repainted everything and did everything he had to do.
That's a risky thing. It's like replacing windows in your house, taking out the old ones when you don't have the new ones yet. So
I had to go with the expert, Mr. McEnone. That's the way he wanted it.
What
He
day is it
suggested.
going to be installed based on your schedule?
If we get it on Tuesday, it'll be installed Wednesday. If we get it on Wednesday, it'll be installed Thursday. He said within 24 hours, he'll have it up.
And when's the first sporting event that's dependent on that scoreboard?
I think Friday. The Friday night game.
So we're going to install it, and we're going to hope it's going to work. That's the other problem.
It should work, it's brand new, again.
So it's the sign we put out in front of the high school.
Well, but, yeah, we had our guys do the electric on it because we wanted to save some money. So
Well, understand what our concern is.
this is a professional, this is the way he wanted it. It's not my choice, I have to yield to those guys.
What's the plan for the dedication?
I have no plans yet for the dedication. We had originally talked about doing it on the 11th at the football game. That's up to the Wellna Foundation and the board to discuss. I'll just work with it, whatever I'm asked to work with.
Any questions from anybody else? Okay, thank you.
Can I add a nice piece of information I got the other day while we got some audience? On Thursday, we were notified by Newsweek that we were selected as one of the top 500 schools in the nation in their Beating the Odds category. We were 382 out of 500, and that's national. I thought that was a heck of an accomplishment for the high school, given all that we went through last year. And I wanted to bring that to the board's attention. I didn't put anything out because I wanted to tell the staff today. I wanted them to know first. So there'll be more to come on that.
Thank you. Dr. Labby, report?
Just before we get, Dr. Labby, are we going to work with the Wellna Foundation on some type of formal dedication ceremony for this, or?
Absolutely. I mean, I believe that was the plan. I believe that they have something planned. We also have a 9/11 dedication planned for the 11th as well.
Okay.
I think one of the concerns that was expressed to me was the fact that, this young man who I regret I never had the opportunity to meet because I've heard so many outstanding and amazing things about him, was a soccer player. And I know that Mrs. Trapp expressed to me concern as to, why are we making a dedication for this young man during the first football game and not the first soccer game. So, Mr. Brown, is that something that you guys discussed in your committee?
Yeah, we did. We thought when I talked to the committee or when I talked to the group, first of all, the Wellna family thought the football game would give it more exposure.
Okay.
And that seems to be the consensus, right? That's what we spoke
Okay.
about.
And in terms of a dedication ceremony, as far as I'm concerned, whatever Mr. Brown and the committee, the Wellna Foundation Committee develop, I'm all for it.
Okay.
But again, I know that we have a busy pregame. As we all know, it is a tragic day in our country's history that there is an amazing ceremony planned for Thursday, September 10th, by the borough. We've asked them to give us a condensed version of that incredible service right before our football game on the 11th, too. So we'll have those two very, very special presentations before we actually kick the ball off on our 2015 season.
Do you know what time that's going to be? Do you have a time set for the 9/11?
I believe that, Mr. Brown, we talked about when we would sandwich that. Do you know the ordering?
I was waiting to speak to Mr. Kelly, so we haven't
Ken Kelly?
really done anything on that yet.
Okay. Probably 6.
Just worried about getting the sign.
Right. Kickoff is at 7 p.m., correct?
Yeah.
So, I mean, obviously, we're talking about the 9/11 dedication ceremony lasting 5 to 7 minutes.
Okay.
And then I believe the dedication ceremony will take approximately 10 minutes.
It shouldn't take that long.
Yeah, 5 to 10 minutes. So we're talking about a set of very, very intense and very, very important ceremonies taking place within about a 15-minute period of time just before kickoff.
Mr. McInerney, I'd also like to express my thanks to the Matthew Wellna Foundation for the donation of the scoreboard. I think it's very appropriate in memory of Matt, especially since that field also serves as our soccer field and has not had a scoreboard that works for soccer. So the fact that now we will have a scoreboard there that will actually appropriately represent the sport and what Matty was all about, thank you very much for the donation and the lasting tribute to his memory and legacy.
Mr. DeAndre, you're going to do the minutes? Oh. We approved the minutes already?
There are no minutes.
No minutes from the 18th? No? No. Okay, Board of Education members, if I can direct your attention to the Vision 2030 Finance and Infrastructure portion of the Superintendent's Report. Number 6 on page 2, we're asking you to approve the attendance of our STEM supervisor for a very important regional conference in Atlantic City. Number 7, we're asking you to approve an application to the County Superintendent of Schools for the use of substandard educational spaces. That is something that we do annually. Very important year for that as well, because you might not be aware, we will have QSAC monitoring this year, and those forms are used greatly in that monitoring. You can find all of the substandard educational spaces listed on pages 2 and 3. Number 8, we're asking you to approve the disposal of 2 broken pianos. That can be found on page 3. Numbers 9 through 16, we have several facility usage permits, one in which will be in accordance with our fee schedule. You can find that on pages 3 and 4. Number 18, we're asking you to approve the use of buses for a very special program that's taking place at the high school. You can find that on page 5. And number 19, we're asking you to rescind a transportation contract that was awarded to a lowest bidder. So we're asking you to rescind that. That can be found on page 5. That's number 19. Number 20, we're asking you to approve some additional transportation contracts that were awarded to lowest bidders. You can find that as well on page 5. We have several more quoted transportation contracts for you to approve on page 6. That's item number 21. Several of our students from the Samsell Upper Elementary School will be going on a field trip to Delicious Orchards Park in Colts Neck. You can find that on page 6. We're asking you to approve that because it does include transportation costs. We do have several students that will be attending private and public out-of-district schools, including one that will be going to the interim alternative program
we're asking you to approve their placement tuitions on item number 23. That can be found on page 6. And finally, items number 24 and 25, we're asking you to approve the SRO officer at the Sayreville War Memorial High School and at the middle school, but with a deferred payment to be made in 2016-17. Those can be found on the addendum. Are there any questions on the finance and infrastructure portion of the agenda?
I have a question.
Jack.
For number 13, what is an alternate payment?
In interim, number 13?
Number 13, it says it's an alternate payment in lieu of custodial costs. What does that mean?
Over the past several years, they have made a direct payment to the cafeteria staff for their services that they provide.
So that's different than, and they will pay the kitchen help directly?
I think they also supply a scholarship as well.
Yes,
Scholarships and things of that
They provide a
nature.
scholarship, and they pay
scholarship
the
then.
kitchen help directly.
Okay, so the alternate payment is really a scholarship?
Is the scholarship.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, and why did we rescind the lowest bidder contract for the buses?
Seaway informed us that they've lost employees and they don't have bus drivers for their routes. So we weren't going to take the chance and wait to see if they hired anyone.
Okay, and for number 18, are we also renting out the parking lot in that?
I believe we may have already approved that
I think it was on the
previously.
last
Okay.
agenda.
Dr. Labby?
Yes.
On the SRO at the middle school, the deferred payment, I thought we had discussed that. There was no benefit to that. Is there anything that I missed?
We talked about it in public. Some of you mentioned that that would be something you're not in favor of, but it is something that I'm asking you to approve or not. Again, as I've let you know, the discussion was had with the council about possibly forgiving us for the 2015-16 school year, and that was rejected. They are graciously offering, though, a deferment.
Mrs. Bloom, that was discussed at the last meeting. You weren't here. But the police chief had urged us to continue the use of the SRO at the middle school, which is what prompted much discussion at the last meeting about how we can go about doing this, and this is the result.
Okay, thank you.
And number 4, page 2, I'm going to abstain on. And number 5, I'm going to vote. Number 25, I'm going to vote no on.
I'm also going to vote no on number 25.
I need that.
Okay, may I move on? If I can direct your attention to portion B, Vision 2030 Student Achievement, we're asking you to approve the curricula provided here on page 7. Numbers 2 through 4, we're asking you to approve several co-curricular activities. That can be found on page 7 and 8. Any questions on Vision 2030 Student Achievement?
Next.
Okay. Vision 2030 Governance, I'm sorry, I have a B there, it should be C. Number 1, we're asking you to approve for a first reading 2 different policies. One is advertising, sponsorship, and commercial activities. That goes along with the student goals that we had mentioned. We had mentioned the fact that we want to generate revenue through advertising. In order to do that, we will have to revise our policy with regard to advertising. Those revisions are noted in the attachments that are up there on the table. We also introduced unit assessments. If you do not know, we are replacing final exam and midterm exams based upon the fact that our students are saturated with assessments, particularly during the spring months. So we are replacing those midterms and those final exams with what are called unit assessments. Because of that, though, we had to revise our student assessment grading and reporting grading policy. So we're asking you to approve both of those for a first reading. Naturally, we'll ask you to approve. If there are any revisions, we'll bring that back to our governance committee, and then we'll ask you to approve for a second reading at the September 15th Board of Education meeting, if you do approve them for a first reading now. Number two, we're asking you to approve the annual policy for free and reduced lunch set forth by the New Jersey Department of Education. That is a standard motion that we put in annually. Any questions at all on Vision 2030 governance?
Next.
Okay. As you know, we normally take the time to honor staff members that are retiring. At our last meeting on August 18th, I did not have the privilege to go ahead and honor a staff member that is retiring, and that is Donna Morawski. She is an incredible speech and language therapist that has been with us for many years and has serviced immensely effectively hundreds of students. So it is with heartfelt appreciation that we celebrate Mrs. Donna Morawski's retirement this fall. As one of the longest-standing members of our Project Before preschool program, Mrs. Morawski has helped the program evolve from 2 initial classrooms located at the Sayreville School many years ago to the dynamic and robust program that it is now, and is such a vital part of our school community. As a speech and language therapist, Donna provided comprehensive and essential clinical services for our students with disabilities. In fact, Donna was a major advocate for students with hearing difficulties, assuming the role of the FM system facilitator at the preschool level. Mrs. Morawski has also demonstrated expertise in the areas of augmentative communication and oral motor and feeding disorders. Perhaps most importantly, though, Donna was an essential member of one particular student's inspirational journey through the Sayreville Public Schools, a student who went on to teach us all the spirit of the diverse learner. Mrs. Morawski provided therapy services, guidance, and support to the student and her family from her preschool years all the way through her graduation from the Sayreville War Memorial High School. We wish Donna Morawski well in her retirement. Starting with number 1 on Vision 2030 personnel, we're asking you to accept some resignations on page 8. We have several resignations there. Numbers 4 and 5 on pages 8 and 9, we're asking you to rescind the appointment of a Project Before teacher assistant, who I will happily note we hire later on in the agenda as one of our special education teachers, as well as a girls soccer coach here at the high school. Number 6, we're asking you to approve the hiring of some Project Before teacher assistants. And again, I'll make the point of these teacher assistants are with the self-sustained preschool program. That's that tuition-based program that we provide teacher assistants through the funding that we get through the tuition. Number 7 and 18, we're asking you to approve the hire of 7 certified staff members for this school year. You can find that on pages 9 and 10, as well as on the addendum. Number 8, we're asking you to also approve the appointment of 4 non-certified staff members. You can find that on pages 10 and 11. Numbers 9 and 20 and 21, we're asking you to approve some substitute teachers, 8 substitute school nurses, and 5 substitute principals on the addendum. So the teachers you can find on page 11, the nurses and the substitute principals you can find on the addendum. The addendum was up. Oh, there was none left? Oh, I'm sorry. Number 10, we're asking you to approve 1 paid coach at the high school and 3 volunteers. Numbers 11 through 12 and 18, we're asking you to approve the transfer of 2 certified staff members. You can find that on page 12 as well as the addendum. Number 13, we're asking you to approve an in-school suspension teacher here at the high school. That can be found on page 12. Number 14, we're asking you to approve the employment of bus drivers and bus aides for the district. You can refer to attachment A to see those personnel members, and that can be found on page 12. Number 15, we're asking you to approve the revised salaries of the summer IEP work. And Board of Education members, this should be the last time that you receive that. Number 16, we're asking you to approve some professional days. You can find all of those on 12 and 13. Number 17, we have some web assistants, one at each school, that we're asking you to approve for the stipend indicated, and that is found on the addendum. And then finally, we're asking you to approve our lunchroom and recess playground aides for this school year, and you can find that on the addendum.
Dr. Labby, your merit goals are not up for approval at this meeting, correct, or the following meeting?
Correct.
Okay.
I have a question.
Mrs. Franco.
Page 12, number 12, is that new position, is it a budgeted position, or?
No. The ESL position?
Yeah,
No.
no.
Fortunately, or unfortunately, we have a great number of students that have moved into the district, and in accordance with the state regulations, if you have over a certain number of students that speak a certain language, you have to provide additional assistance. We do have two subgroups of students that are over that amount. That is Spanish as well as Arabic, I believe, Dr. Shediak, if you can help me out, which would require more assistance for our English language learning program.
So how many ESL language teachers do we have?
Four with this.
We have four, which
Four-
includes
four
this one?
including this one.
This one?
Yes.
And on the project before, the salaries are different. Is there a reason? What's the distinction? Do you know?
For our teacher assistants,
Yeah.
those are just the salaries that we provided. Those are the salaries that we negotiated with those individuals.
With-
And again, that's not for our school district program. That is the self-sustaining tuition program.
Good? Okay.
Thank you.
Any other board questions for open up to the public?
I have a question.
Go ahead.
The district goals, is that something we vote on? I don't see that on here. Is that something we're voting on?
It's
Do we
informative.
ever vote on that?
We
approve
can
it.
if you'd like, but I don't think you have traditionally.
Okay, but we're not going to.
Not tonight.
We would, the purpose today was just to discuss it in public. But if you'd like, I can put those on the September 15th agenda.
No, that's okay. I guess my question was because the merit goals sort
They
of
will be
mirror.
tied into.
They're tied into.
There might be one or two objectives that are not on my merit bonus goals. But for the most part, I would say about 90% of what is in our district goal will be a part of my merit bonus goals.
So if there's, just for the merit goal question, if there's a district goal on here, and I'm okay with the district goal, but I'd like it worded differently in the merit goal, can that be done?
Yeah, if you just
It
give me your
doesn't have
feedback,
to
yeah.
mirror it exactly.
It doesn't have to, my merit does not have to mirror exactly the district goals,
It
no.
doesn't? Okay.
It will get a little tricky if you remember when we did my evaluation. Because in my evaluation, you score me based upon my accomplishment of the district goals and then my merit bonus goals. So it might get a little tricky there for you, but there's no problem with that.
Well, that was my problem. I think that it wasn't specific enough when it came to the merit goals. It was too broad, so I had a little bit of trouble.
Fix it. Beth?
I have one question. I don't see any more paraprofessionals being brought back, so now after the new start of the year and we see attendance and enrollment, then perhaps are we bringing any more back?
Well, I mean, it's a good point that you bring up. You know, a discussion that we often have at the beginning of the school year is enrollment. And as I've communicated to you throughout the summer, we've had a high number of kindergarten registrants to the point where we had to move some children
to different, we had to move about 20 students from Truman to different elementary schools so that we could level off those classrooms. But I will say that we're about close to or at 25 students per kindergarten classroom. So if we do go over in any of those kindergarten classrooms, we're required by regulations to provide a paraprofessional in those classrooms. As you know, at the end of June, there were about 18 paraprofessionals that we did not rehire. We have brought 2 back since then, and we budgeted for, I believe we budgeted for less than 11. So we still have room to grow in terms of within the budget, bringing back paraprofessionals. But as of right now, the paraprofessionals that we are utilizing are special education-based paraprofessionals. That may change if we have an increase in any of those kindergarten classrooms, though. Thank you. Any other questions? Okay, at this time, open up for the public for agenda items only. I will open it up again pretty quickly for the public for any discussion that may come before this board. So agenda items only.
John Bovary, 1210 Harbor Club Drive. I was told this wasn't necessary, but I think it is. Last meeting on August 18th, up this microphone, I mixed 2 topics that should have never been mixed, and I guess got confrontational with Dr. Labby. I've dealt with him personally on this. The air is cleared, but for the record, I'll publicly apologize for mixing the term pervasive with the discussion of the athletic director, which took place last meeting, right? Thanks, Kevin, for the question I had about district goals. They get tied into Dr. Labby's merit bonuses next meeting, not this meeting. I'll be looking for measurements. Hope we got some tools, right? Dr. Labby, you talked about, you used the term ad hoc committees, and I don't know if you made it specifically for both these topics or for anything but modified block. On 2 topics that I speak about often, right, block scheduling and SATs, right? Whenever you have an ad hoc committee, if you can invite any member of the public, and I don't have to be it, right? Get the public's feedback before you announce a policy change every once in a while if you could, right? SAT course details on whatever number that was, this company called, I apologize, Stats Prep, okay? It starts Thursday. How many kids have enrolled?
No, I don't know. They are a patron that's using our building. They lease our facilities.
Yeah, I understand, right? We've done this before.
So we can contact them to see, but we don't have those figures.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
But, Mr. Brovey, I will contact them to see.
Yeah,
how
any
many
details you could pass me, cost?
You got it.
Cost basis, that sort of stuff, right? Did the board ever consider whatever they're charging, I'm sure it's fair and reasonable, right? Did the board ever consider subsidizing the cost of that cost for students, as we discussed many meetings in the last 10 years? Any discussion? So if it's a $124 cost, did the board talk about putting aside a couple grand to lower it $50 to help more people in the town?
No, we haven't, but that's something the curriculum committee can certainly
Okay,
talk about.
yep, thanks.
Fair enough. Thank you. Anyone else from the public about agenda items? Seeing none, I'll close the public portion and entertain a motion to accept and file the superintendent's report.
So moved.
Need a second?
Second.
Need a roll call vote.
Mr. Balker?
Yes.
Mrs. Bacco?
Yes.
Mrs. Bloom?
Yes.
Mr. Brzezinski?
Yes.
Mr. Syak?
Yes.
Mrs. DePinto?
Yes.
Mr. Walsh?
Yes.
Mr. McEnroe?
Yes. Was there any committee meetings between last meeting and this meeting that needs to be discussed?
The governance committee met. The output is in the form of the policies, and I'll also be getting the board a report from that meeting with the content of the deliberations.
Okay. Anybody have any items for discussion before I open up the public? I just have one. I just want to make a comment that has been brought to our attention this past week by a couple of members of the public about the appropriateness of one of the texts that's on our summer optional reading list. The parent who wrote the email is someone that's highly credible and respectable. She outlined some of the inappropriate content. We looked into it, and she's absolutely right. Even to the most casual observer and reader, it's inappropriate content. The book was immediately taken off the list. We also pulled from the list, from the website, all recommended summer reading lists, and about 10 books per subject area per grade, and we're going to reevaluate all those titles. Also, the board is looking into what is the process that a book makes it to that list. How are they reviewed, who reviews them, and to make sure that it's grade-specific, content appropriate. So that was brought to our attention. We're working that issue. It's something that I will be looking into personally, and it's also the number one topic on the curriculum committee meeting that's going to meet here. When's our next meeting?
September 22nd.
September 22nd, so wanted to mention that. Any other discussion? So this time, open up to the public for any business that may come before this board. Please come up, state your name and address for the record.
Good evening. Carolyn Porcaro, 59B, Hillside Ave. I was just wondering if I could have the status on Linwood Crump returning to Sayreville High School?
Well, it's a student, personally, this board never has and never will discuss student discipline or student information in public. We're protected by state statute in order to protect the privacy of individuals.
Was that supposed to be discussed in tonight's meeting?
No, not at all.
Oh, it wasn't?
No.
Okay, because my son went to the Board of Ed building yesterday.
Last night.
And I guess he was supposed to testify on his behalf that he wasn't afraid of Linwood.
I understand.
And that seems to be the big thing that, and this may not be true, but it's going around that he's not allowed back in because the kids are afraid of him. So a lot of kids showed up, and a lot of kids signed a petition to state they're not afraid of Linwood. Let's add that Linwood was found innocent in the court of law, you know, with his charges. I don't understand what's going on, and I do know he's not being allowed back into the school. I think it is wrong. The kids have been through enough. He was given his chance. He was found innocent. He should be allowed in, and I don't know what we're teaching our kids anymore. Like, enough is enough, and I guess we'll find out if he's in school or not. You know, it's starting soon, so you won't release that information. You won't make a statement on that.
I cannot, not in public about a student discipline issue.
Are you able to make a comment if the victims are coming back to the school?
I can't make any comments on individual students. I mean, it's always been the policy of the board, and it's covered by counselors of state statute.
Okay.
And the board, as much as it may even want to, the board is prohibited by law from sharing any information on student matters, anytime,
Do you
under any
guys have
circumstances.
any part in NJ.com releasing any information when they do it? Or was it coincidental that they released the information they released yesterday during Linwood's hearing with you guys?
It was the prosecutor's office that released information. I think that's what she...
You guys weren't in contact with them when that was released yesterday?
No.
No.
Absolutely not.
Not at all? Nobody on the board was in contact with the prosecutor's office?
No one from the board has ever spoken to anybody from the prosecutor's office about this matter. Everything's been done through legal counsel, and no one has spoken to him.
Okay, because it was released at a horrible moment. I'm not sure if you guys were aware of that, but I was at the GMC dinner with my son and 3 other boys from the football team as we're trying to get over this. You know, the boys are sitting there not knowing what's going on, and you had every other high school football team from Middlesex County and parents and football players were sitting there with their phones, just as we thought this was kind of past us, looking at it, reading, looking at our boys, making comments. Like, it just came out at a really bad moment, and it just seemed coincidental that, you know, during Linwood's hearing with you guys, it came out. It was just, you know, I don't know what happened there, but then I'm hearing that Linwood's not being allowed back in school, which I think is absurd, being that he was found innocent, and the only one in Linwood's case that is serving any time is the so-called victim himself. And, you know, I'm just going to stand here and say it when everything is being said about these players, which I think the public is being misled. False information is being put out there when the victim, in this case, is a sex offender himself and is the only one who served time here, was offered a plea bargain to testify against our football players, and this isn't being put out there. Do you guys know anything about that?
The board has been put in a very difficult situation in this from the beginning. This has always been an issue between the prosecutor's office, the family court judge, and the defense attorneys. The prosecutor had made it very clear to us that we're not to speak about this, we're not to speak to the students, or to address any questions pertaining to this. It's to go through his office. And we've adhered to that. And we've made no statements about any of the victims, the defendants, or anybody else on this team. It's been out of our hands, and we had a gag order, and we still do, of not to speak about
Oh,
this.
you are directly placed under a gag order?
What's that? Not to speak about the students or the incident.
Excuse me, it's, just if I can explain, it's not a gag order. It's the law. The board is not able to speak about student matters, number one. And number two, this is a matter between the prosecutor's office, as Mr. McEnone said, and the family court judge.
Am I correct in saying that's done and over with? Linwood's done, his case was done, he was found innocent, so now it's a matter of the Board of Education and Linwood. Can he come back to school?
Ms. Percaro, is that your last name, Percaro? Just
Yes.
want to make sure. Okay, so Ms. Percaro, we can't talk about student matters. I understand you'd like us to do that. We can't, as much as we may want to talk about this, we're not allowed to. We're not prohibited, we're not allowed to do this. We're prohibited by law from doing it. So, as much as you want information, unfortunately, at this time, we can't give it to you.
Okay, does a student have a right to have his day in front of the Board of Education?
Yes.
And what happens if the Board of Education does not come up with an answer to that student?
The Board of Education will grant a hearing to any student that has a right to have a hearing.
And what
that's-
happens if that hearing just ends? There's no decision made.
We can't comment on individual circumstances.
Again, we get into an area where I can't comment on student particular.
I'm not asking about a particular
We have
student.
not had a hearing.
I'm asking about any student. I'm not asking about a particular student.
And this is public comment period, so we hear your comments, the board's interested in hearing what you have to say, but this is not just a time to pepper us with questions. We understand what you're saying. We wish we could answer some of the questions you've asked, but we're not going to answer any more questions.
You won't answer the question?
We will not answer your questions, your theoretical questions. You've been up
Okay.
here for a while, and we appreciate your comments. Thank you.
Okay. Can I ask one more question?
Sure. Yes.
Do we still stand by that it was considered hazing that went on with the football team, and it went on for years, and that's why the season was canceled? Do we still stand by that statement?
I stand by the action that this school district took once the information was provided us by the county prosecutor's office.
No, do we stand by this statement that was given last year as to why the season was canceled?
I stand behind the reason why the season was canceled.
And that went on for years?
I never said that.
No, Dr. Labby did. That was known and
I stand behind the decision
accepted.
Dr. Labby made. If you recall, when that decision was made, the board voted in public unanimously to support the superintendent's decision.
Okay, thank you.
And nothing's happened between then and now to change my mind that I made the wrong decision.
Okay, no, I was just curious as to how you have coaches come in that were so fresh that like just graduated, just 1 or 2, 3 years prior that, if hazing went on for years, then, hey, he would have been a part of that too. So I was just curious if you stuck by, your decision and your statement. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Carroll. Anyone else? Mr. Bovee.
John Bovary, 1210 Harbor Club Drive. Right? In response to the speaker before me, I'll address some of her concerns, because you can't, but I can, okay? Right? I don't think she used the word pervasive, Dr. Labby, but I think that's what she was getting at, okay? Right? So don't blame me for using the word, okay? Yeah, I think widespread and pervasive, right, were discussed. Yeah, I've had that stuck in my craw for about 8 months, and I'm convinced beyond a shadow of a doubt that the words pervasive and widespread originated from the Middlesex County Prosecutor Carey. So if anyone in this audience is concerned of who thought it was widespread and pervasive, I suggest you go speak to him, okay? I support the board in the decisions they had to make along the way, and I've documented at this podium, I didn't agree with every one of them, okay? I think you did a good enough job, okay? But in response to words I heard 11 times I read the papers yesterday, NJ.com. They cut off some of Carrie's comments. My Central Jersey did a better job, I think, right? And I had never heard the word innocent in reference to any of the 6 people who have settled through trial or a plea. And I don't know, but I don't think we in the state put people on probation who are innocent, okay? I may have read it wrong, but I read it to mean that to one degree or another, all 6 were guilty of something, okay? I don't need to say any more, but you couldn't say anything.
Anybody else from the public like to speak? If not, I'll close the public portion, and I'll take a motion for adjournment.
So move.
Counsel.